Hello, everybody. Keaton Gillogly with you, and today we are joined by Nuts manager Denny Hocking. Denny, how's quarantine treating you?
It's obviously a little bit different, but trying to stay with the guidelines and stay home as much as I can and just get reacquainted with the family during this time.
What's your daily quarantine routine right now?
Oh, wow. Let's see. First of all, before I go to bed, I definitely make sure I don't set an alarm. That's pretty much where I start with. And, just get up and just kind of have some coffee and make some breakfast. Usually by the time that I get up, my son's up. He's on his computer doing school homework. And my daughter's out in the living room also doing homework for her school. So it's kind of like a mini classroom what we got going on here. But just kind of filter around the house. And, Mikey Sadler had sent all the players who were interested some workout stuff. So every once in a while, I come across that paper and try to do as much as I can at the minimal pace that I'm capable of doing it, I think is how I describe it.
So, what's the highest percentage you've gotten done on one of his workouts?
I think I got through the first one. He sends it out and I write it all down. I'm like, okay, great. Day one, it's like a 5-day program. So I'm like, day one, cool. Let's get through it. Day two, get through it. Day three is a lot of running. Yeah, I'm not running. Sorry, bud. And then the fourth day, I was like, yeah, let's kind of go through this. The fifth day, the second week, I just took off. So, I'm one of those people that I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, you know what? You got to work on this, bro. And then I go, oh wait, let's do a Sudoku or whatever.
Well, your kids are athletes too, and at a pretty high level. How are they staying in shape right now?
Well, my daughter in Arizona, Ileana, she's got a slight lower body injury, so she's actually back in Arizona doing some treatment, staying quarantined back at her place back there, occasionally getting some work in. But my daughter here from SC tends to go out and sneak into a park and kick the ball around. But really with soccer, it's not about being able to touch the ball. Really, it's about staying fit. And it's super hard for them to do while they're on their own. But their trainers and staff send them out some stuff and they're able to kind of get through it the best they can. My son, who, obviously being a sophomore in high school, their season got banged. So he was off to a good start and having some success, but now, everything's been shut down. So it's no longer, you can't go to the cages. They're all shut down. So he just tries to stay busy. He's a workoutaholic. So I'll look up, I'll walk out in the living room and he's doing push-ups or sit-ups and he's all into himself. So he's all walking around, no shirt. I'm like, yeah, dude, put a shirt on. You're embarrassing me.
Now, I mean, when you were a big leaguer, you played through the 94, 95 work stoppage.
Yeah.
What was that like when you were trying to kind of stay in shape? Because at that point, you weren't totally an established big leaguer. So what was that experience like for you?
I was a player rep at that time. So I was really trying to just get to know the business side of it. What the players were asking for, what we wanted to keep that the players before us had really gotten us, what we weren't willing to relinquish, understanding what the owner's point of view was and just kind of trying to meet in the middle. So a lot of what I was doing during the strike talk was going to meetings and being on conference calls, things of that nature. So I don't really remember throwing a ball around or going to cages or anything like that. It was pretty much how can we get this thing back started for the fans and for everybody, really.
So how long then did it feel like you kind of felt like yourself on the field again once you did start up the workouts again?
Well, I think, just being a utility guy, it didn't take me long. Your timing, and for me, it really wasn't that difficult. I would get hyped up for game days anyways. It's not tough to do when you're only playing twice a week. But where I think that the battle was with the pitchers, and that's the interesting thing now when you look at this, and you wake up one day and you've got people not fully educated saying, oh, we're going to do this and we're going to get started at this time. And so I think sometimes it brings false hope. I think every once in a while we lose sight of being able to understand the most important thing, and that's the safety and health of everybody, really.
I'd like to go back to spring training and just get your perspective of that day that baseball shut down.
We were I had gotten there on a Saturday. Sunday was an off day. Monday was physicals. Tuesday was our first day, pitchers and catchers, rained. Wednesday, rained. Thursday, they were like, all right, you know what, just take the day off. I think it was Friday. They were like, you know what, Thursday night, don't even bother coming in. We've got some stuff happening here. We're gonna start to figure things out. So Friday was an off day, and then they wound up sending out a group text to everybody and saying, come on in. And we all went in, and they said, as of right now, we're shutting everything down to the minor leagues and sending everybody home. So it was a shock to start with. And I think as a coach, I was like, all right, my question is I've got a rental car here. I don't feel like flying. Can I just get in my rental car and drive it home? And they're like, absolutely. They gave the players the option to book their own flights home, but they basically wanted everybody in the minor leagues to get out. And it initially started with the big league guys, 40-man guys, spring training guys, being able to stay there and still work out. And then that got nixed right away. Just, as this pandemic started to, we really started to identify it at that point as far as professional sports, was really when the information came and they're like, all right, this is what we need to really shut down.
So how was the communication with the Mariners and from the higher ups to keep you guys informed as things were happening so quickly?
We had that initial meeting, and they just wanted everybody, for everybody's safety, to get out of big groups. They just sent everybody home, and not knowing what the light at the end of the tunnel was going to be. If it was going to be, and some of the questions were like, okay, how long are we going to be sent home for? And the first message was, well, if we were sending you home for a couple of weeks, we probably wouldn't be sending you home. So really it turned into, it's probably going to be at least a month, and we'll pick it up from there, figure out what direction we're going. And still, I think every day, every week, we're learning new things about it. And just, looking at the other countries and how they're handling it and their numbers, and just applying them to our numbers.
So who are some of the guys that are reaching out to you right now, asking questions about how to stay in shape and what they should be doing to stay sharp, and what's some of your advice to them?
Well, one thing, and I'm sure some organizations are doing that. I'm not familiar with all the organizations, but I know as far as the Mariners go, we've been designated players that we should contact. So they just randomly gave, I know myself, I've got 6 players. Johnny Adams, Kober, Duran, and Chia, Larson, and Schaefer, all guys that I've had in the past. And I'm calling these guys about once a week, just first of all, trying to find out about their health, really, the health of them, the health of their loved ones, their family and such. And then kind of ask them, do you have any questions? What are you guys doing, first of all? So there's been some questions. Actually, tomorrow we have a managers meeting. Tony Honorich and Andy McKay have set up. So we're going to probably get through some questions there. I know I've got my questions. I'll go ahead and call them selfish questions, like not only when are we starting, but roster size, how are we going to look at things, what's composed, how many games, all of those things are questions that we'll be able to throw out to Tony and Andy. And if they don't have answers, maybe run them up the flagpole a little bit and maybe get some answers to those questions. I'm sure they don't have all the answers to the questions that we're going to ask though tomorrow.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit of baseball, actual on-the-field baseball. One of the things we're doing during this shutdown is we're going back and we're pulling some of the fun highlights from the last couple of years. What are some of the big moments from last year that really stick out to you?
I'm glad you asked me that question, because I actually kind of tried to think about what my answer would be to that question. And as I look back at last year, a few things. There's so many things that stick out. The first thing is just how fortunate I was to have the staff that I had, the hard work and diligent workers that I was surrounded by every day, the fun that the players had, the work that they put in, and the rewards that they got through having good years, through being promoted, through going down to the last day of the season, game 142 and 140. 140?
140.
140. Yeah, we could have used 142. Maybe we would have caught San Jose. But going down to that last game, and probably because it's the most recent time, I remember having multiple pitchers come in my office that day and say, hey, Skip, if you need something today, I got you. And it actually led to a phone conversation of myself calling Andy McKay and saying, hey, I've got all these guys that we have to win today. And so all these pitchers keep coming in my office. And I said, is it basically all hands on deck? And he goes, Danny, I trust you. So obviously with, keeping their health as the biggest emphasis, I had so many guys want to step up on that last game, which was awesome. Other things I look at Cal Raleigh's hot streak to start the second half. Double A playoffs. I think we had roughly 14 guys on that roster that
From the
comes
nuts.
over a 25-man roster. And then, I kind of like the environment that we created, myself and the other coaches and the players buying in. I really enjoyed some of the dress up days too.
What were some of the things you were looking forward to for the 2020 team and how that roster was kind of developing going into what was supposed to be this year?
I would have loved to have seen the players that potentially were going to be in Modesto this year. You can sit there and go, okay, well, this guy's probably a repeat, or this guy's going to be promoted to us, or what have you. But I do know that looking at our numbers, I would imagine a lot of our pitchers would have been being promoted, and we would be getting a huge influx of the newly drafted pitchers and the guys obviously below us getting their opportunities to pitch at the next level. And, I had a chance to spend some time with Sean McGrath during spring training, and really haven't really fully gotten to know him, but sat in the bullpen since it was only pitchers and catchers, sat with him a few times and watched some guys throw and watched his communication. And I don't think I've never worked with anybody as Rob Marcello as Rob Marcello, Um, but being around Sean was pretty cool to be around him. Sean O'Malley really wasn't there that much. I know he had to go home and tend to some family matters. But what I look forward to coming up this year, if we happen to play the games, or being able to get the new coaches familiar with affiliate ball, get them familiar with the Cal League, watch them learn, watch them grow, watch them coach, and really kind of become who they're going to be as coaches moving forward. I think that's one of the biggest things that I enjoy is using my background, using my experience, my resources of the years that I've had as a player at the multiple levels, as a coach at multiple levels, and being able to impact not only the coaches, but the players as well.
That's interesting because, the Mariners have brought in so many, I don't know that inexperienced would be the right word, but a lot of guys who don't have a lot of even professional time, or bring some of the coaches out of the collegiate ranks. And, Rob hadn't played a ton of pro ball, and he was a new coach. And so we've seen that. And even before you got here with Mitch Canham, he was a young manager. Pete Woodworth was a young pitching coach. Now he's up at the big league level. So when it comes to coaching development, what are some of the things you've learned and some of the tactics you've learned that have been really effective in helping to develop some of these pro coaches?
Well, there's two things that I really think about when I'm coaching. The first is when I first got into coaching, I talked to Sandy Alomar Sr. He was one of my coaches when I was with the Rockies, and going into my first year of coaching, I said, give me one piece of advice that I can really lean on. And he told me, get to know your players before you coach them. And I've taken that to the next level of getting to know my coaches before I really coach them. And I like to be able to get to know them, understand them, learn what makes them tick, see how they communicate, and just kind of not so much push them in a direction, but maybe help and use past experiences of my own to kind of guide them in the direction to make them the best versions of themselves. And another, he was a field coordinator when I was coaching with the Orioles, Brian Graham. And he said, you always understand that when stuff happens on the field, and it's not the good stuff, it's the bad stuff. It's the non-execution of signs. It's anything that happens in a game where somebody's like, whoa, what was that? Give you that reaction. They're always going to look at you, and it's how you present yourself at that time. So those are things that I really try to instill in my coaches. And, Rob and Umby were great at that last year. Rob was phenomenal at, he'd sit down, I'd look at him and, hey, are you going to go take a trip here? He's like, no, he's got this. And he'd yell something from the dugout, and it would be instantly fixed. And so those are things that I'm kind of looking for moving forward to dealing with guys like Sean, who's never coached in the minor leagues, dealing with, should I say both Sean's, and just kind of creating a not a specific path for them, but just getting them to start their careers and kind of just saying, hey, why did you do this? And asking them questions on why they're doing things, and maybe just give them a little bit better perspective on what's going on.
I'd like to ask you a couple of kind of big picture topic questions here. One of the things now, you've been all through the minor leagues, both as a player and a coach now. I'm curious on your perspective of the value of minor league baseball in these small towns, particularly places that are far from a major league baseball environment and stadium. How important these smaller minor league facilities are to helping to develop baseball fans and grow the game for people who don't always have an opportunity to see the game live?
Well, I can look at places like in the Midwest League when I was there 2 years ago, and it is basically your sole entertainment as far as sports goes. And so I think it's critical not only for to create local jobs, but I know that at the lower, and we're talking pretty much about the lower levels here,
Yeah.
the community comes together not just for home games, but it comes together as far as providing homes for the players, having host families. I know we've done that in Modesto also, and they do a phenomenal job of taking care of the players and really providing them a home while they're not capable of being home. And I think those are important, yet at the same time providing an entertainment avenue that brings community together. And you can have a child who's starting to get into baseball and playing little leagues, and you can have a summer birthday and having a birthday party at a game and finding connections, running out on the field. Those are life-changing things that these small communities are able to be a part of.
How often do you see that kind of spark, that little switch flick for a younger fan who says, all of a sudden, this is now my favorite game?
And you see it, and I saw it a lot when we were in the Midwest League, and I saw it this past year in the California League. But you've got a few bigger cities, but just the overall impact and seeing that when you're walking from the clubhouse onto the field, and you see some little kid hiding behind his dad, and the dad's like, come on, just go up there, and the dad gives you a ball for the kid, and you spend a, hey, how you doing, you play baseball, a little interaction like that, and then you see the kid after the game, and they'll wave to you, and you're just like, man, that's so cool that you're able to have an impact like that.
The other question I want to ask you is, you were a 52nd round pick and you got a chance to play 13 years in the big leagues. And one of the things that this pandemic is going to do is going to change the complexion of the draft. And that's already been agreed upon between Major League Baseball and the Players Association. So with the limiting of the rounds in the draft coming up over this year and next year, and however it shapes, how drastically is this going to change the layout of player development moving forward?
With this pandemic, it obviously, the worldwide, it really impacts everybody. But when you isolate it to the baseball business, it's going to have a huge impact. You're going to have guys, first of all, not being able to get out. The scouts don't have the resources that they normally have to be able to see so many kids. Obviously, with the top rounds, you're going to go out and look at guys for probably 1 through 10. But it's those 11 through 40, those kids that haven't really been scouted. The scouts don't know exactly what they bring to the table. Character, I'm sure they have measurables that they can look at, but character, versatility, all of those things, that's where it's really going to impact. And then you look at the guidelines going through college. Some places are giving guys, their seniors, that extra year. So if you're a high school senior that's graduating this year and going to college, you're thinking, all right, I'm going to walk in, I'm going to be competing against these guys. Now you bring that other guy back who was maybe a 20th round draft choice, who can get his degree. I mean, I think you clutter so much stuff at the college level, but I'm going to be really paying attention to, once the draft happens, and then how many guys wind up foregoing school and becoming free agents because this is the dream that they want to get started. That's going to be the interesting part.
I mean, and there's a lot of value to that. I mean, you look at some of the guys that made their name with the Nuts last year. Penn Murphy was a late round pick. Even LJ Newsome was a later round pick out of high school, and he had the time to develop. So, yeah, it's certainly going to impact things. So if you had any advice for some guys who were maybe projected to be a later round pick about how they should try to showcase their skills to make sure they're getting looks, do you have any advice or things that may help that kind of style player?
It's interesting right now. Everybody has basically the same restrictions. You can't go out. You can't go to a facility. You can't use a Rapsodo. You can't do all of these things that really measure your progress. So when I look at, and I try to advise people of doing, getting seen, it's obviously the work that you're putting in right now will be seen at a later date. So for me, it will be becoming the strongest person you are, because as you and I have both watched through this game, it has become about strength on the mound, power on the mound, strength and power at the plate. And the more that you're conditioning your body to give you that advantage, I think that's where, you can really take your skill set. Your skill set's not going to change very much from once this pandemic started until now or until the draft. And so I would say really focus on body movements, things of that nature. So when you get back into it, you get back into your workouts, you get back together around your peers, are you going to be ready to actually be able to showcase yourself and prevent injury as well?
Well, Denny, really appreciate the time, and looking forward to seeing you at the ballpark whenever we get a chance to do that. But until then, stay home and stay safe.
Thanks. I think you should probably work on that haircut, man. Let's go. What are you afraid of?
Oh, it's gonna get really, really sloppy by the end of this thing. I'm not letting any in-home cuts happen. It's gonna grow, and the last time I grew it out would have been in high school, and that got really froey. It got really big, so it's gonna be a mess by the time it's done.
Well, keep busy, keep doing what you're doing, man. It's good to catch up with you, and good luck with all your phone calls moving down the road. And hopefully we'll get an opportunity to ride the buses again together soon.
Appreciate it, Denny.